Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this second event in the Let's Talk Trade series of events. My name's Mary, I'm your host for this morning, and I'm just going to take a few short minutes to introduce you to the panel, the expert panel that we have for you today, to tell you a little bit about this platform that we're going to be working in. And I'd also like to tell you a little bit about the overarching aims of the Let's Talk Trade initiative. So this morning, in a few short moments, I'm going to hand over to Martin Hathaway, who is going to facilitate the discussions. And Martin is the Managing Director of the Mid Yorkshire Chamber of Commerce. This morning, we also have for you Michelle Cooper, who is the International Trade Advisor at the Department for International Trade, Yorkshire and the Humber. We have Antonia Gott, who is the Managing Director at Antonia and Panacea. And we have Jason Oshopakai, who is the Managing Director at the Global Travel Collection. So I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the overarching aims of the Let's Talk Trade initiative, which is to really empower local businesses to thrive now that we've exited the EU and realise the trading opportunities that lie ahead. We really want to help Calderdale's businesses connect and develop import and export relationships with new suppliers and trade partners, not just within the EU, but across the globe. Now, I appreciate that many of you may be far more familiar with Zoom or Teams as a platform, but this platform is super easy to navigate, and I just want to tell you a little bit about some of the functions. So firstly, you can navigate around the platform using the menu buttons to the left-hand side of the page. And accessibility settings can be found in the top right corner of your screen. There's a little icon with a picture of a person inside. And if you click on that, you'll be able to adjust the accessibility settings to suit your needs. Notifications throughout the event will show in the top right-hand corner, and this includes private messages and any event announcements. If you should require technical assistance, you can chat directly with the lovely Jodie, who is live backstage, and she will be able to help you with any of your needs. If you just click in the help section, then she'll be there for you. In terms of the rest of the platform, we have the event lobby, where you can see the event announcements and information and engage in the public lobby chat. If you've entered the section a couple of minutes prior to the session starting, you'll be able to view the session information, all the speaker information, and engage in the public session chat there as well. You can choose to maximize the video screen by using the toggle bar down at the bottom of your screen. And also, we're going to really encourage you to ask the panel live questions throughout the event. If anything pops into your mind that you want to ask them, please do so. You'll notice the question button above this video to the right will be active and accepting your questions. So can you pop your questions in there, but not in the chat function? You can view the speaker information, their profiles and their social media links, and learn more about the session also. You can network and engage directly with all attendees or participate in a dedicated group chat, which will become active straight after the session. And finally, in the account section, you can set your profile preferences and add your image if you want to. And if you don't want to participate in networking and direct messages, then you can turn these settings off in the account section. So I hope all of that is useful. All of this information is available for you to read. If this has been too much, just look at the menu bar to the side of your screen and you'll find it all written out for you. I hope you enjoyed today's session. The topic of today's session is expanding opportunities and new markets. And I'm now going to hand over to Martin, who's going to facilitate the discussion for you today.
That's great. Thanks very much for that, Mary. Before I introduce our first speaker, I thought it would be useful to explain the context of where we are. We have recently undertaken a survey across the area, and the survey reflects on the views of business with the two big impacts that have happened recently, obviously COVID and exiting the EU together. And the story, I'm pleased to say, is looking positive for businesses. There's been a big surge in domestic sales across all sectors, particularly in manufacturing. The exports are down, but the order book for the future is looking great for businesses in our area. Employment tensions of businesses. There are an awful lot of businesses looking to employ staff, although there are some skill shortages. Confidence in the future is looking very good within businesses, although I have to say that is before the announcements of last Monday on the extension to the current measures that we find ourselves in. There are some issues in exporting. The shipping costs, in particular, are very high, and transport costs have increased greatly over the coming months. And also, warehousing costs are very high at the moment due to a number of businesses stockpiling goods, getting ready for leaving the EU, and that's having an impact, and it appears that that's carrying on currently. So a positive picture all round. I'm looking forward to hearing what our speakers have to say today. Could I first of all introduce Michelle Cooper, who is the International Trade Advisor for the Department of International Trade, who offer an array of services for businesses across Yorkshire and the Humber who are looking at entering into the export markets. So, Michelle.
So, good morning, everybody. So today I was going to talk a little bit about a mixture of sort of what are the opportunities and kind of new markets, areas that are arising after having now left the EU, and what that can present as opportunities for local micro businesses, and then also outline a little bit the support available to businesses via the Department for International Trade. So I sit within the DIT team in the Yorkshire and Humber region, so working with local businesses here. The role of DIT naturally is to secure UK and global prosperity by promoting international trade and championing free trade. So we're looking to sort of bring together policy, break down barriers to trade, particularly looking to develop a new policy framework following the leaving of the EU, promoting British trade and investment across the world, and of course building an appetite, a global appetite for British goods and services. So firstly, sort of what can those opportunities and new markets be? What's the landscape looking like now? So as we've left the EU, this has given scope for the UK to develop a new era and economic shift for international trade, particularly, obviously, focusing our international reach further beyond that of our immediate EU neighbours. So naturally, as Martin's just alluded to, the transition has not been without its immediate challenges as businesses learn to navigate the new trading rules. And here at DIT, we've been looking to give a lot of businesses guidance on how to work through that and what has changed. And as businesses learn about how to export rather than move goods within a customs union, this also means that businesses have the scope perhaps to extend their capabilities into markets beyond that of the EU, where perhaps they hadn't previously. There's now, within this new era, a strong emphasis on developing new trade deals across the world to facilitate opportunities for UK trade globally. So trade agreements are designed to eliminate tariffs, reduce quotas, and essentially ease trade between the regions where there is the agreement. So the expectation now really is for markets such as the US, Canada, China, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Australia to be that focus of kind of UK PLC expansion. Already the UK has forged or agreed in principle over 60 trade agreements internationally. So Japan really being the first of those, which was set out in October last year, facilitating a greater ease of access to a market which last year was worth £24 billion to the UK. Following that were other agreements, including Canada, Singapore, South Korea, Switzerland, and many more. Announced just a little earlier this month, the UK also has an agreement now in principle with Australia, which is just going sort of through the final ratification stages now. And there's also consultations beginning with UK businesses about setting out the next sets of trade agreements, for example, with India. In addition to that, the UK is now formally applying to join the world's largest free trade area, the Comprehensive Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. So that's a CPTPP, which is deepening trade ties with 11 of the fastest growing markets in the world: Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, Singapore, New Zealand, Peru, and Vietnam. In fact, our International Trade Secretary, Liz Truss, is beginning the virtual talks on that today. So joining this free trade group can cut tariffs for UK industries, help promote sort of high value jobs across the UK, and essentially give access to a group which is worth, in 2019, £111 billion to the UK, and business which is growing by about 8% year on year since 2016. So in short, there's lots of new kind of trade routes, global trade routes, which the UK is looking to grow, particularly in growing economies. And for micro businesses who can be very agile, you can be very well placed to adapt and to seize these new opportunities. So next, I'd just like to come and talk a little bit about how DIT can fit in with that, and how the different facilities we have available to us can help businesses in our area develop internationally. I would broadly say that splits into 4 main areas. So the first being sort of events. So we run lots of events which are mostly online nowadays. Eventually, I'm sure we'll go back to some real life events as well. And those are designed to develop and enhance international trading capabilities. They can be very broad in topics. So they could be about internationalizing your website or developing an international marketing strategy, or they can also be very sector specific. This week, for example, DIT are running North America Week, and that's got lots of different sessions on a key variety of US trade topics. For those who are newer to exporting, we run a program called the Export Academy, and this focuses on the key foundation knowledge areas for exporting. So it's running 9 different sessions covering topics like export procedures, market research, pricing, and how to get paid. The Export Academy is free to join, and the next sessions for that start on the 20th of July. Other events focus on UK specialist sectors, so that can be things like food and drink, technology, education, healthcare, clean growth, chemicals, manufacturing, and more. Aside from the events, we have then the trade advisor team, so that's what I sit within. And within that, you have individuals who can provide guidance on trading internationally. Particularly, many people have a lot of questions now about navigating the changes of trading rules with the EU, so we've given a lot of support in that area. We also then work with companies to develop and execute what we call an export action plan. So really that's helping set out that international strategic approach. Beyond the kind of UK teams, we also have the DIT Overseas Network. So we have a network of people in over 100 countries. So these colleagues with their specialist knowledge of the local market can provide businesses with country and sector advice, local insight, local market research, identification of possible partners that you can team up with, and essentially they're there to provide assistance in securing new business overseas. And lastly, I'd say the kind of 4th element that we have as one of the main areas of DIT is also funding support. So we have a fund at the moment called the Internationalisation Fund. That's a 50-50 co-investment funding of between £1,000 to £9,000, which is essentially available to businesses who are looking to develop their export. So it could be utilised to support with costs for international market research, IP advice, translation services, international social media, search engine optimization, and as or when sort of travel becomes a little bit easier, it can also support things like market visits and trade show participation. So in essence, there's quite a lot of new directions for where business is expanding and growing beyond the sort of emphasis that we've maybe had previously on the EU. So really looking at those kind of growing markets and looking to facilitate trade deals which can open opportunities for UK business. And with the support from DIT, then we hope that we can help businesses in our region access that much more easily. So I'm going to pass back to Martin now, who will introduce our next speakers, and in due course look to hearing your questions.
That's great. Thanks very much for that, Michelle. There really is a renewed interest in exporting from the UK, probably caused by the number of or the amount of negotiating we're doing with nations and sectors to create these new trade deals. We at the Chambers of Commerce are part of the biggest network of businesses in the world, and we now weekly receive approaches from other chambers around the world looking at creating trading relationships with us in Calderdale in particular. So it'll be great to see how we can make the most of those, and hopefully we'll hear some ideas from our next two speakers. But if I can urge any of you who are thinking about exporting for the first time, then please make contact with the Department of International Trade. We can help you through the chamber, as I'm sure that the council can help you get in contact if you've not got the details, although we will circulate this separately. But the services that they offer really do help businesses on that first step of the ladder, and those looking at finding new and different markets to the ones they currently operate in. So thanks very much, Michelle. Could I now hand you over to Antonia Gott, who is the Managing Director of Coffee Domination and the Managing Director for Antonia and Panasar Limited.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Martin. I'm Antonia, here to explain a little of the opportunities presented to our company due to Brexit. We run two businesses. Antonia and Panasar run with my business partner Harinder, and our retail operation Coffee Domination. The collapse of sterling has probably been the biggest knock-on effect of the Brexit result. The weaker pound will make the UK a cheaper destination for people and new customers to visit. Foreign holidays becoming more expensive and passport control processes more complex will push more Brits to holiday at home. The result, a surge in demand for the UK hotel and leisure industry. A huge knock-on effect for companies such as ourselves, resulting in increased sales and product demand. UK small businesses are a major contributor to the economy. They create jobs. Total employment in SMEs was 16.6 million, 60% of all private sector employment in the UK, with turnover estimated at 2.2 trillion, 52% of the overall trade in the UK. External pressures that persist within our supply chains are at the moment much harder to control. Specifically, the dramatic rises in ocean freight costs, which continue to rise at unprecedented levels. As a company, we are now seeing a huge price increase of paper packaging and disposables, which has a profound effect across almost all suppliers. Coupled with COVID, we have also seen an increase in demand for the use of disposables, particularly within the hospitality sector. Huge opportunities now exist within the UK for manufacturing, and although rebuilding UK manufacturing will take time, ultimately a country thrives when manufacturing is succeeded. But what about new opportunities? Our divorce from the EU will act as a motivator for UK small businesses to expand into uncharted territory and international markets. Taking advantage of the undervalued pound will help reach an entirely new customer base. We have prepared for this opportunity by adapting an online presence to allow international customers to browse in their own language and pay in their own currency. It is now our time as entrepreneurs and small business to take action, to plan and make the most of these growth opportunities presented by this change. The resilient entrepreneurial spirit which has made our country great will be required now more than ever if we are to not just survive but thrive in a post-Brexit Britain. What about local opportunities? Stay loyal and local. While Brexit has undoubtedly brought many challenges, one of the unexpected benefits, should I say, was that it led to us wishing to buy more local food and drink. Brexit, coupled with COVID, brought shortages at supermarkets, online delivery slots often hard to come by, and everyone encouraged to stay closer to home. People turned in their droves to smaller independent business. We adapted at breakneck speed and in the most innovative of ways. A major advantage within small and micro business, as they are much more easily able to adapt and do not have the same constraints as major companies. We have witnessed a dramatic growth in recent times, and the desire for the British consumer to support local business is most certainly on the increase. Smaller independent retailers are becoming increasingly popular as the consumer demands a different experience away from the collapsing high street. It is certainly an encouraging uplift as people discover for the first time what's on their doorstep. Undoubtedly, people will continue to support these local businesses as we push the message, stay loyal and local. Collaboration is also the key, and collaboration and the exploration of new markets will see small businesses thrive. A continued theme of finding UK suppliers has seen huge growth for us. We recently collaborated with Vocation Brewery, using our coffee beans in their espresso stouts and our tea in their Earl Grey beers. An extremely successful project for our company, not only just with the sale of products, our work on allied branding and developing a collaborative social media presence. We have also worked within the Bespoke Hotel Group, particularly with the Crown Hotel in Harrogate, and last year, pre-COVID, helped them to develop an exciting afternoon tea menu, which was linked with our Antonia and Panasar teas and Union Jack branding. And although at the moment on pause due to COVID, we are hoping to roll this out later this year, and if successful, could see a further 200 hotels within the group offer the same experience. We have also recently sponsored Bradford Bid 2025. They chose some local companies to work within the region to sponsor them and their bid. We chose to sponsor this great effort, which is again raising the profile of our brand. We attended a recent event at Bradford City Football Club, and it became abundantly clear that keeping things local would form a significant part of their bid to win. We were also able to network with other companies, which is a significant key to helping small businesses grow, and identified several opportunities where we could all work together to build a better Britain. Welcome to Yorkshire also are a key player in helping support and promote small businesses in our region. And we had pre-COVID huge opportunities to work alongside them at some of their major events in London. We were identified and chosen as an up-and-coming luxury hot beverage brand to showcase and support them in their Yorkshire food market in the Borough Market in London. We are now in discussions again with them to be part of their beverage forum to help develop further opportunities. The challenges we now face in a post-Brexit Britain are being able to develop alternative UK supply chains, and although this may take time, the more goods we can supply and purchase at home can only help make Britain great once more. Thank you. And I'd now like to hand back to Martin to hand back over to our next panelist.
Thanks, Antonia. That's great. I think there's some really interesting work you've been doing there, and identifying the weakness or comparable weakness of sterling is one of those. It's how we now make the most of that, and the buying power that brings, and the value for money that we can offer from our manufacturers and services to export around the world. Could I now introduce Jason Osho-Hickey, who is the Managing Director of the Global Travel Collection in London. Jason, nice to see you.
Thank you, Martin, and great job on my last name. But no, in all seriousness, first I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here, and it's wonderful to hear from the other panelists and gleaning some insights and some actionable intelligence from their perspective. So we're super excited to be here. Just as an introduction, again, Jason Osho-Hickey, Managing Director of the Global Travel Collections. For folks that don't know, the Global Travel Collection effectively is a selection of premium, iconic, and trusted travel agencies around the UK that provide travel expertise really in three core areas. The first one is what we would say is entertainment, production, touring, film. So when if you're watching BBC or you're watching Netflix, those productions that are being created either here in the UK or anywhere in different parts of the world, our travel advisors are actually responsible for that travel. We also handle what we call small to medium-sized corporate travel, as well as leisure travel. Interestingly enough, we actually have a meetings and incentive business called Your Event Solutions. Yes, a very great name, which is actually based in Halifax. I haven't had the chance to go to the office yet, but I'm hoping to do so as the restrictions ease. At GTC, we kind of see ourselves as a vessel for the small, independent travel advisors. That's pretty much how our business model is. So effectively, entrepreneurship is part of our DNA, where you have different travel advisors across their disciplines as small independent businesses that choose to trade their business under one of our respective larger brands. But I want to just take a point at the beginning just to really acknowledge the importance of the local business, the small and mid-sized company, as really the heartbeat of the economy in the UK and really in most other industrialized countries. And again, I just want to reinforce that entrepreneurship is very much part of our DNA. So I want to talk a little bit about Brexit's impact on the travel world. And I think most folks that are watching, I think all of us yearn to travel again. Whether it be local or whether it be international, it was something that we almost took for granted. And now we're really realizing that not having it just makes us realize how much we truly value and how important it is. But as an industry, we have faced, just a really tough challenge as we continue to learn and adjust through the transition with Brexit and really with COVID. And I just want to touch on just a couple of trends. Some of you might have seen in the news, but due to the COVID pandemic, revenues across the travel sector are down anywhere from 70 to 90%. And as some of our other panelists have highlighted, the amount of jobs created across the value chain of travel is pretty profound. Globally, 1 in 10 jobs is tied to travel and tourism globally. So just to give you a sense of the magnitude of when you're seeing revenues down 70 to 90% and organizations needing to make some pretty tough decisions. As just kind of a service reminder, currently, as of right now, only essential travel is really permitted. The UK government's done everything it can to really protect our sovereign people to make sure that, we were combating the disease, but then at the same time, still making it economically friendly for us to do business. Some of the key points as it relates to travel is, number one, the testing and quarantine requirements are rapidly shifting. And I think that actually creates a deterrent for leisure travel. Because you think about it, if you travel to some place in the world and then upon arrival back in the UK, having to quarantine for 10 days, that's pretty much of a deterrent for most folks if they're traveling for leisure. But interestingly, having said that, we did a survey with some of our corporate travelers just to get a sense of, post-Brexit, how is that going to impact their travel plans? And 43% responded that there would be no impact to their travel plans. Again, thinking life after COVID, but them saying 43% saying that there would be no impact. And we find that as a very, very promising trend. 44% said it was a little too early to tell, just as kind of things were settling as it relates to the requirements, visa requirements, et cetera, as it related to Brexit. What we're finding is in terms of the opportunities after Brexit that we're seeing. Number one, interestingly, entertainment, production, film, and media have moved a lot of their productions that they would have done in other countries. They're now bringing it back domestic into the UK, which is creating great opportunities for local communities that really wouldn't have had those opportunities otherwise. Also, we're finding from a leisure standpoint, what we call UK staycations, where most folks are thinking in the summertime to go south of Spain, south of Italy, Portugal, France, now having to look within our borders for ways to take their families. We're finding multi-generational travel. Multi-generational travel is defined as kind of grandparent, parent, child, all traveling as a small group. And again, finding different areas, whether it be in Wales or Scotland or North Ireland or in different parts of England, whether it be 3, 4, 5-star properties or villas or house rentals, finding ways to create experiences when we weren't allowed to travel abroad. And I think that those are trends that will continue, not just regardless of if the borders open. We still think that that will be a trend that continues because it was not something that was really on the shelf before. So the idea of spending your summer vacation in England, typically people were thinking of leaving. But now that they've actually done it and they think, hey, you know what, do we really want to travel 5 or 6 hours by plane if we can drive 4 or 5 hours by road and go have an amazing experience with our family and friends? So in a way, kind of adversity has created unique opportunity and shared learning situations. So just in terms of out of the adversity comes opportunity theme, while the effect of Brexit continues to present us with challenges, it's also given us as a travel management firm an opportunity to redefine our value proposition. If you think about the complexity of travel, even before Brexit and before COVID, I would argue that it's really difficult for somebody to want to do it yourself, just to go on a website and just book your own travel. There's just too much uncertainty. There's just too many rules and regulations that I would argue shift, if not every hour, every day, depending on which country or part of the world that you want to go to. And it's also going to be dependent on how governments respond to the ongoing pandemic. So what we've done is just invest in our business, finding the right partnerships that give us the ability to provide actionable, meaningful intelligence to our advisors as they can book travel for families, etc. So we partner with CIBT, which is a very prominent visa and passport organization, to help us with our research, and again to provide those frequently asked questions at the fingertips of our advisors. And I think what ultimately it's created is it's reinforced a sense of loyalty, and it also helps attract potential travelers to say, hey, I was normally going to do it myself, but now I am looking for expertise and looking for organizations that are really, really investing in themselves. So, the last thing I would want to say is, and I think Antonia mentioned it, collaboration is the key. We believe at GTC, the sense of community is what allows us to be best in class in our ability to share knowledge within our advisors. And I would actually argue that, that can actually transcend even at the chamber level. The ability to draw on experiences and knowledge from other businesses, particularly in a rapidly changing world. Antonia is mentioning some of the changes in just shipping and freight. And Martin had kind of shared the whole notion of, storage facilities and there being shortages of storage facility. Well, to be honest with you, that's not something that's necessarily top of mind for me, but it's a great data point for me to have as I'm thinking about our footprint and maybe how we're using that resource, perhaps in a different way. So I think the one thing I would say is, having the community of memberships is probably one of the greatest benefits, and the shared knowledges is something that is absolutely paramount, particularly as you're thinking about how you can pivot and adapt your respective business in increasingly amounts of uncertainty. So, on that point, I would just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this. As I said earlier, for me, it's an opportunity to learn from a fantastic panelist and their knowledge. And Martin, I'll just send it back to you and look forward to the questions. Thank you.
That's great, Jason. Thank you very much for that. We have a number of questions already coming in, and they're a mixture really of looking at opportunities and how to best find those opportunities, and on issues that businesses are currently facing. And so I might lump some of them together if that's okay. But if I could start with a specific question to our manufacturer that's here, Antonia. The current situation, what challenges have you faced with your manufacturing processes in the last year, and how has it affected the way that you manufacture your products or provide your services?
Sorry. So we don't directly manufacture. So we are a coffee distributor and a coffee machine distributor. So we don't in fact directly manufacture. We subcontract roast all our coffees, which is done in the UK and packaged from us.
Okay, thank you. Can I move on to identifying opportunities? We've got a number of questions in around the subject of identifying new markets. If you're currently a UK-based supplier or export to a limited number of markets, what's the best way to identify people that may want to buy your goods or services outside of the UK? Could I start with Michelle, please, on that question?
Yeah, certainly. Well, obviously, sort of one of my key recommendations would be to reach out to the Department for International Trade. So we're here as a service provided by the government. There's no charge or no direct charge for our services, so you can certainly come to us to pick our brains in the first instance. Really, when you're exploring new markets, it's about gaining that knowledge and that local insight. It's about reviewing sort of the statistics, the development in that country for perhaps that particular sector or that type of product. So together with perhaps some guidance from one of the trade advisors such as myself, and or also linking into those colleagues overseas, perhaps to explore those specific markets. By doing that, you can get that local insight, that local market guidance. It can also help to identify potential partners, customers who you can collaborate with, approach, and in turn sell your products to, or organize a distribution arrangement with, or whatever sort of suits for your particular product or service. So getting that local insight can really kind of fast track you to a mixture of prioritizing where you're going to put that focus. So you may feel that perhaps 5 or 6 markets could be interesting, but you're not sure yet which ones to prioritize that focus on. And so that inside knowledge can really validate the strategic approach that you then take with that.
But how do you identify the markets in the world's a very big place. If I'm a manufacturer based in Halifax and I'm making biscuits, for example, where do you start? So for small businesses, where was it you would start in finding a potential market for your products?
Yeah, again, I think that's where reaching out to your trade advisor can help, because they're obviously working with a lot of different companies, often in a similar sector to yourself, that can reveal a lot of insight as to where perhaps that business is easiest to procure, or there are perhaps opportunities opening up. For example, when it comes to businesses like food and drink, they're one of the areas where really, in those regions where we have things like free trade agreements, there can be a lot of advantages to UK businesses, because the product will become of a UK origin if you're manufacturing and producing here and you're meeting the sort of certain criteria for the rules of origin, which can give you then a tariff free advantage to trading with those areas. So as I mentioned in the conversation earlier, we've recently agreed the deal with the Japanese market, and that means, for example, through DIT, we're running a whole host of events that can help connect, first of all, help educate and inform UK businesses about what that opportunity could be, and touching on different sectors, and then diving deeper into that to facilitate opportunities to connect with buyers in that market and actually facilitate that networking opportunity to procure the business. So so I think kind of reaching out to your trade advisor can help give an overall awareness of it, and then you deep dive a little bit into certain markets to explore that a little bit more detail. And key is really looking at what are the statistics in that kind of commodity code almost, to see which markets are the strongest purchasers perhaps of that area, or where do we already have insight where we know there's going to become that demand there, or the demand is growing.
Yeah, thanks for that, Michelle. Could I perhaps come to the other panelists on this, starting with Antonia. You're very experienced in work for some large companies in the time. Is any advice that you could pass on to smaller businesses on how they identify the right place to market their goods and services, and how to do those deals?
So one of the things that I would say is really important and very hard as a small business is to actually speak to the right person that's the decision maker. And I think that's been made particularly difficult with email, because you can't ring people. People don't buy from people anymore. People buy predominantly on price. I think more events like this, networking events, working with other businesses to identify different product needs is absolutely key in helping small businesses, move forward. Because I just think the whole, from when I started in sales, a long number of years ago with Nestle, people bought from people, and you developed relationships, and I think the whole culture of that has changed. So I think maybe Yorkshire Chamber of Commerce could help with bringing small businesses together for networking events. International, what Michelle does, they can help as well in bringing small businesses together, maybe identifying key people that small businesses need to speak to is absolutely the way forward. Welcome to Yorkshire again, within our region, another key player in helping promote small business. And that's key. Fundamentally, I think that's the real key to putting people together, as opposed to just a flick of an email and somebody goes delete and that's it, gone. So yeah.
Great, thank you very much for that, Jason. Any views on this, on identifying the best market? And I've got an additional question for you, which is coming, which is with your travel experience. Is how do countries around the world see the UK currently and the opportunities for doing business here post Brexit? So, firstly, on the issue of opportunities, how do we identify them? I think you're on mute, Jason.
I got to tell you, that's the phrase of the last 18 months. You're on mute. I need a T-shirt that says that. No, Martin, just to piggyback on some of the earlier comments, what we found over the last 18 months is that people that were interested in coming into travel, right, they saw an opportunity, but they needed to find a platform, number one, that made sense for them. And then the second thing is, what type of travel were they going to sell? And then hooking up with an organization that already had what I would call an international reach. So that's kind of part of what we've done. So one aspect of it is education and training. I'll give you a real example. There's been a variety of folks that have come into the business that are very keen on focusing on honeymoons and wedding destinations. That is what they want to build their business on. But that's part one. Part two is then figuring out, well, what is the global network to kind of enable you to get access to local content? And then the third one is helping them develop their business plan. Every entrepreneur wants to grow, but I find that the biggest challenge they have is, how do you grow? Antonia talked about a few things, in terms of local things that you can do. But even if you're a local business, I always think you should be looking beyond just your local environment, particularly as it relates to travel. There could be demand around in your local constituency, but they may desire to travel somewhere else. And you want to be backed up with A, the expertise, and B, the kind of the global reach. So that's kind of my contribution on that one. The last thing I would say is there's been a shift. If you think about meetings and events, before it was moving tens, if not hundreds of, or potentially thousands of people to a specific location. But what we found over the last 18 months that was not allowed. So we had to kind of pivot the business into a way where we can have online, but still showing the virtue of having that in person and in touch. And I think it was said earlier, there's no better communication than in person. There is no marketing campaign that will replace sitting across the table and articulating the values of your business or partnerships that you may want to kick off, whether that be, again, domestic here in the UK or abroad. So I would say that that's my note on that one. And Martin, if you can remind me what the second question was.
Yeah, the second part was how countries overseas see the opportunities within the UK for creating trading relationships post Brexit, whether they see that as an advantage or as a threat, an opportunity.
Sure. In talking to my colleagues around the world, I think the viewpoint of the UK is that we've taken a very cautious and measured approach in terms of how we're dealing with the pandemic, if you will. But medium to long term, there's still a lot of excitement about wanting to trade with the UK. If you think about just the purchasing power of a UK citizen traveling, it's disproportionately higher than most other folks around the world. And I think for travel inbound, again, to the point of the UK staycations, etc., the UK is becoming a destination not just for the normal hotspots of going to central London or going to Liverpool or going to Manchester, but there are so many places in between that represent fantastic value, either for travelers that want to come, but also people that are looking to set up businesses. I think the last thing I would say, Martin, from an investor standpoint, there's been a lot of investor dollars that have come into the United Kingdom in the last 18 months because they see the opportunity. When the markets are down, right, the price of acquisition also goes down. But if your thesis is over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years that the market is going to grow back past 2019 levels, that represents a fantastic value for an investor that has what I would say a medium to long term viewpoint on their investment philosophy.
Great, thanks for that, Jason. This is a question that's come in for all of you, which is around where you see the opportunities. So in particular, what countries? Now, we as a Chamber of Commerce currently provide export documentation to, within Europe now, but traditionally the markets in this area that we provide the documentation to are the United Arab Emirates is by far the biggest export market for our customers here, followed by North America, before coming down to emerging markets such as India. China is climbing up the list of places we export to, but it's still only about 10-11% of the documentation that we provide goes to China. So there are any countries or markets that you think would be growth sectors for the typical businesses in the Calderdale area? Could I come to you first, Michelle, with your opportunity providing the advice and guidance to businesses? Is there anywhere particular that businesses are looking at, and where do you think that we could start looking?
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with the sentiments that you just said, really. So markets such as North America, so Canada, US, provide very strong opportunities for UK businesses, and in general also kind of, given that there's kind of fewer language hurdles to navigate there, that can be a little bit easier, obviously sort of subject to which sectors and things you're in. I think the Asian markets as well really provide a lot of scope and opportunity. So Japan, Singapore, South Korea, those sorts of orientations. Growing forwards, certainly India and China can open up new opportunities. But as you say, I think there's still a mixture of caution sometimes, particularly when trading with China. People wanted to know, that I'm going to be protected with my brand as I move into that market, and being able to sort of navigate through that safely. But the way of doing business in China has greatly progressed over the last years. So I see that as being an area that's really going to grow and come to the fore, and over time become that bit potentially easier for UK businesses to access as well. But certainly I think for those businesses that are newer to exporting, potentially then those like North America, the stronger sort of Asian markets, Middle East, as you mentioned too, definitely there's a lot of opportunity in UAE in particular. We see a lot of scope for that growing there, and it's one of those markets where it has the kind of the climate, the sort of investment infrastructure in terms of sort of education, construction infrastructure, the disposable sort of income and the wealth kind of growing there that opens up those opportunities too.
Great, thank you. Jason, do you have any thoughts on this? I always try and identify something that we have in common when I look at our export markets, but I'm also quite fickle, so I only trade with companies that that also drive on the right, which limits me to the Channel Islands, Cyprus, and Japan. So I'm not sure that makes a good strategy. But do you have any thoughts on where the up and coming markets are?
I got to tell you, I'm very excited with what the current government is doing now that they can strike their own trade versus having to negotiate with 27 other partners before you can make a deal. I think that that will put the UK in really interesting, kind of a leading position. Again, most of the markets that were mentioned before, I'd say probably. I would say if I was a betting person, I would say right now the U.S. Just because we're rekindling that relationship. There's definitely conversations between Biden and Boris about wanting to do more, about going bigger, and we have a high motivation to do it as well. Because we can simply move quicker, and also I think language is another thing that was brought up by Michelle. So I would say you can pick a spot in the world. I mean, it's interesting. Nobody mentioned Africa, but yet Africa is got some of the biggest growing populations. If you look at Kenya, put it this way. Here's a great soundbite. In the next 15 years. So the subcontinent Africa will have 4 countries that have populations over 200 million. So if I'm an exporter out of the UK and I'm looking at the map, yeah, the sure safe bet would always be India, where we have cultural ties, and China because of its mass size. But I would say, if we just look south, again, with the right relationships, with the right partnerships, with the right expertise on both sides of the aisle, it could be a very attractive opportunities. If you think of Uganda, if you think of South Africa, etc. So, and even Nigeria. And I'm a little biased since I'm half Nigerian, so I have to give a shout out there.
Thanks very much, Jason. Antonia, do you have any thoughts on markets?
Yeah, so one of the big growth areas that we see, because we're a real luxury brand, is to push that kind of luxury end into the hotel sector, particularly across all markets. So working with international hotel groups and identifying them as potential customers, obviously will help our business grow. And I think working with people maybe like Jason can help us in the right direction. So it's again that collaboration and moving forward into international markets that helps.
Great, thanks, Antonia. The next question is around barriers. So we have a number of. We mentioned transport costs on the increase in transport, in warehousing, delays at borders. One that's been brought up in our questions is around insurances, which I know from our members have gone through the roof in some areas. What's the best way we can make ourselves aware of the potential barriers to international trade and work together to try and take down these barriers? So I think this is one for you, really, Michelle. Are you coming across this with your clients, insurances from China on, we're having a number of things with China at the moment to do with legal processes. We're having issues with companies that have been trading in China for 10 years or so now being asked to reset up or to change the way or to re-register. Is there anything coming up with you?
Yes, certainly. We're seeing a lot of different commonalities with barriers to trade that people are experiencing, as you mentioned sort of at the top of the introduction about, challenges with shipping costs, challenges with sort of insurance. There's a number of different topics which are, sort of less sector specific and more overall to international trade. Here at DIT, we try and do a mixture of things. Sometimes we can't quite change immediately the kind of global position to have a perfect solution for it. But what we do try to do is draw on the experience that we have across our teams where we've been working with different companies who perhaps have found different solutions or have found maybe a less negative approach to how they could not necessarily overcome, but mitigate the challenges that were presented. We also, so DIT sort of plays into the larger Department for International Trade system, as it were. So at the sort of other end of the spectrum for myself, so I'm here kind of advising UK businesses, but at the other side we also have the element of DIT, which is looking to break down those trade barriers as well. So we feed a lot of communication from what we're learning about businesses experiencing on the front line through to that DIT kind of policy team, who can then look to see, you know, how can we negotiate or adjust that trading environment to sort of lessen these obstacles. But again, it depends what it is. Sometimes when it is something a little bit more commercially driven, like shipping or insurance, then the parameters of impact that you can have maybe a little kind of slower to come through, and it's the market's having to resettle themselves a little bit, or that sector needing to resettle itself. So it varies depending on what it is.
That's great. I'll be coming to you all very shortly for a final question, which will be what would be your one a big opportunity that you think for businesses who are looking at exporting in the coming 12 months. So just one thing from each of you. We've had an interesting question around trade missions around the kind of thing that Antonia talked about with Welcome to Yorkshire, going to Bruth Market, to looking at doing those things, and looking at how businesses can work together, not necessarily to bid, but how they can work with their peers that are looking at exporting. And it's something that we've been picking up, and potentially as a chamber, and we're potentially looking at running some clubs to get businesses working together, which will work across the area with our local enterprise partnerships and our councils, to look at how we can best facilitate those processes. But can I come to you all now just for the final thought on the one big opportunity? Should we start with Antonia, please?
The one big opportunity that I see is the, making Britain great again, in terms of, I think that the Union Jack symbolised a lot of what was great a number of years ago. And I think as a nation, if we can really build on that, build on the making Britain great again, then that will provide opportunities for us all. And that's one of the things that with our tea range, that we brew for Britain. So that's one of the things that we now do, is it's all based around our Union Jack branding and brew for Britain. So hopefully that will take us into those markets where Britain will be seen as being great again.
Great, thank you. Michelle, from you.
Yeah, along similar lines really to Antonia, I would say that because there is this reframing of the UK scope for international trade, it means that the UK government is obviously looking to create a lot of opportunities for business to expand into new territories. So I think that provides a really strong opportunity. These facilitations of the different free trade agreements globally will open up new doors. And alongside that, I'd definitely say tap into your DIT office, because part of what makes people successful in their exporting is having the confidence to do it. And that's where when you can draw on those expertise from those who've sort of been there, done it, got the different experiences, or have the network connections, that process becomes a lot easier. You don't just have to face it on your own.
Great, thanks. And Jason, the final opportunity before I hand back to Mary to finish things off.
Sure, I'll try to go quick. I think there's three things. We need to be talking about revitalizing travel, right? I think that's huge. It's something that's been robbed from us for far too long. I think the advocacy, for example, there's a day of action that's happening tomorrow outside of the House of Commons, the House of Parliament, with all of the collective travel agency or travel industry community, airlines, across the board, coming together in a singular voice to say we want things to move. And I think the third one is we've developed a campaign called Go Human, Book Human, and putting the human element back into travel So shameless plug, if you go to bookhuman.travel. I have to get the URL right, but it's just so fresh and fascinating, and it reminds everyone of why we want to travel and the importance of having somebody that you can actually speak to walk you through that journey. Now more so than ever. So I would say go human, book human.
That's great. Thanks very much. Thanks very much to all of the panel. Mary, could I hand back to you?
Thank you so much for such an engaging, informative, helpful discussion to our expert panel. Thank you so much for that session. We hope you've enjoyed today's session, and don't forget that we've got another 3 coming up after today. The next one is on the 20th of July at 10 o'clock at the same time. No, 4 actually. I say this is our second of 6, so we've got another 4th coming up. We want to remind you of the various features. You can carry on with these conversations using our networking section on the platform. We're also like, if possible, to get a little bit of feedback from you regarding how you found today's session. We will be sending you a link to a little survey in an email after we've finished for today. So we'd love it if you could fill that in and give us your thoughts about how it's gone along today. Attendance is absolutely free for all 6 sessions. So we really hope that we'll see you with us on the 20th of July at 10 o'clock. Thanks once again to everybody, our expert panel, and to you for joining us. Take care.